It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, May 8th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's doing our favorite thing, talking NHL draft prospects.
Love it.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to do sort of a deep dive into some more depth picks here with Nicolas Sykora and LJ Mooney that are some intriguing options for the Flyers here. But again, given the lottery results, we want to start off with those what if scenarios for that 6th overall pick, because given where it is, as we've said so far this week after the lottery draw, there's a lot of variables here and anything can happen, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is, again, I say that they're in the position to see who falls because somebody will fall. There'll be one team that picks who nobody expects. Anybody who says with great certainty, especially for this one, they know exactly where these guys going, you don't. Because once the first pick is made, that could change everything. Because if the Islanders go with the hometown kid, they go James Hagens, that changes a lot.
Right.
So, again, there's a lot of uncertainty. And it's even beyond the first 4 picks because that first pick makes a chain reaction happen possibly.
Exactly. And so I think from a Flyers perspective here, the assumption on the table, and I think it's a good assumption, is that the Flyers are going to target a center. And we've talked about it. They should target a center. And this draft in that top 8 is very center heavy. So it's a good year to do that.
Yep.
And they absolutely should do it. Now, here's the kind of multi-layered question you have to then answer. You have to say, should they go for a center regardless of best available, depending on how the chips fall? And which of the top centers will actually make it to the NHL as a center? Like, that can you safely assume will do that? And I think that's kind of an evaluation you have to do ahead of time, right?
Right. It is. I mean, if you're asking me, and I won't give out the names, but I'll give the number 5. I think 5. I think 1 will not play center, and it's possible 2 won't play center.
Of that top 6 centers we're looking at?
But I'll say 5 off the top, and then it could turn into 4, but 4 to 5.
Right. All right. So that's pretty solid, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's like a pretty good bet. You're going to pick a center that's going to make it to the NHL as a center. So that's good. Now, I think, putting the names into the conversation here, but not assigning them based on what you just said for your own personal edification. Right. I think basically what we're looking at as far as the centers is Hagens, Misa, Frondell, O'Brien, Denoyer, and McQueen, right? Those are your top 6 centers ostensibly right now.
I mean,
right?
In a perfect world, yes. But again, with this injury with Roger McQueen, I don't think he'll go as high as that. I think there'll be a drop there because it's not a great injury. Yes, he will recover, and yes, he will play. But now you have to decide, will this ever bother him in the future? Which, if you look online, it says it might. And then you also have to decide, what's he going to be now post-injury?
Right.
And so, first thing is this going to be like Hayden Lindstrom, who didn't work out at the combine? So you don't get to see him work out. You barely got to see him play this year. He came back. He got hurt again. He's got this spinal stress fracture. I'm sure it's healed by now, but again, it's going to need rehab and all those things. And there's a risk here. There's an absolute risk factor.
Right. And I think that's important to note here. And that's 100% why I put him at the bottom of the list in terms of these six, regardless of the rankings. But that is the order in terms of the centers that you have them ranked on
Yeah.
your latest rankings, which are on our draft prospect spreadsheet. There's a link in the show notes that has all the episodes that we've discussed, various prospects, as well as your rankings as they've changed month to month, and like kind of the general draft episodes we've done as well. So take a look at that if there's anybody you're interested in that we've talked about. But that being said, because we've talked about every one of these centers already
Yes.
that we're talking about here. So you can go back and listen to our detailed report on them. But I think there's going to be an option for the Flyers here. It's not going to be who they're stuck with, because we know that Matthew Schaefer is very probably going to go in that top 5.
Yeah, I think it's 80% he's going number 1.
Right. Right. So at some point there will be an option here for the Flyers.
Mhm.
And I think, Porter Martone, maybe he'll be there, not likely, but maybe,
I
right?
mean, there's always a chance, but I don't think
Always
so.
a chance. Right. But that being said, if Porter Martone goes in the top 5, that's yet another choice the Flyers have to
Right.
make with one of the centers, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
I think, for the Flyers, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, there's not a gloom and doom situation here. It's just a matter of evaluation. So I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. So I think that sets the Flyers up to at least have a pick of 2 to 3 quality centers
Mhm.
in this draft if that's what they want to do. Now, I do think there is a potential line in the sand where if you look at the best center available in your opinion versus the best not center available in your opinion, if that not center is the best player available versus the best center available, do you change your strategy at that point, or do you stick with the center strategy? That's another
Yeah,
question for the
I
Flyers to
do.
answer.
I do, because let's say it's Michael Misa. He's the best non-center available. I mean, he just started playing center again this year. Yeah, he's doing pretty good with it in the OHL. I go back to the Travis Konechny thing. Like, I just looked at him and said, I don't think Travis Konechny's playing center in the NHL. And I said it way back when, and he never did. I don't think Michael Misa will either. So I just think he's the best one that's not going to. And then there's always a chance James Hagens doesn't, but I think he's done it for so long. I think he can.
Right. So I think that there is that line where the Flyers
Yeah.
will jump ship from the center strategy if a better, best available player is there. And
They
I
might.
think we have to be open to that possibility. That
Mhm.
and it's not a bad thing for the Flyers to forego a center with this pick when they could get a very, very, very good player in a different position, right?
Yeah, I think that's entirely true. I mean, again, we could go back to let's go back to Cutter Gauthier. Well, Cutter Gauthier started playing center in college, but you remember I said on the show, I don't think he's a center. The Flyers wanted him to be a center at the time. What's he
Yep.
playing now? Left wing.
Wing. Yep. Yep. So
That's what
I
happens.
know, and yeah, and that's why I asked the question at the top of the discussion: who is listed as a center versus who's going to make it as a center? Because I
Right.
think if you're banking on somebody to be a center who can't be a center at the NHL level, like that's a mistake in terms of your pick strategy. It may not be a mistake in terms of the player themselves. Like Cutter Gauthier is going to turn out to be an excellent winger
Right.
in the NHL and already has started on that front. We know how Travis Konechny has done as a winger in the NHL. Like the success stories are there for
Yep.
early career centers transitioning to the wing. Like that's not the issue. The issue is like having realistic expectations of the strategy and what it should be given what the decisions the other teams make above
Now,
them.
what if I have a guy there that I think could play center that's not listed as a center? What does Rachel say about that?
I mean, I think it depends on who it is and why you think that, because I think that if you see like a guy with size, let's say like a
Mhm.
6'2", 6'3" guy who's generally a winger, but you see his play, let's say on the power play
Mhm.
and what he does on the power play that could suggest success at the center role, you also have to look at his development path and say, do we have the years and the games to get him there, right? Before you would want him at the NHL level. Those are the
Right.
questions I would ask.
Yeah, because I look at Lyndon Lakovic, and at 15 he was playing center, but then he got switched off. He's 6'4". He's got a lot of power. He wins a lot of battles. Maybe you try it out. I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'm saying if I had him in my organization, I might try it out.
Right. And you have him at 10
Yeah.
in your ranking right now. I feel like in a lot of people's eyes, that would be a reach for the Flyers.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's fine. I wouldn't pick him with the 6 either. I would probably pick him in this draft. You know, I have him at 10, so that means I would pick him like 12, 13. So I agree. But I'm just saying, if for some reason they trade down, they get other picks, we don't know what's going to happen in this draft. That's a guy you could look at. Or if he's around at, 20 something and you didn't get a center because, Misa was there or Hagens was there and you're not sure. This is another guy that might be able to do it. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. And it's, we can't know what the Flyers are going to do, but that's always a possibility. They have traded down. We've seen it in the past, in terms of
they've done it a couple times. So
so it's something they do on a regular basis. So not out of the realm of possibility.
I know people aren't talking about that and people don't want that. We're just saying it's possible just because it's happened. That's all.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I think depending on the circumstance, it can make sense or it may not make sense.
Yeah.
I'm always the guy on that front.
I'm always the guy, make that pick. You know that. Right. And I think you are that person too.
Yeah, I am absolutely a make that pick. When you're in the top 8, you make the pick. That's just what I would do. But the upshot is, again, the Flyers are going to have a choice of at least 2, maybe 3 top quality centers with that 6th overall pick. And we'll continue to, dig into who that could be as we get little hints, as we get closer and closer to the draft. But we want to look at some guys that maybe we pick in like the 2nd, 3rd round for the Flyers, and that could be intriguing possibilities. We are going to start that off with LJ Mooney. We'll talk about him coming up next.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsors job posts. Put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. When you have a new project that requires just the right hire to pull it off, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
All right, on tomorrow's show, we're going to kind of do some grass is greener conversations here about the Metro division and kind of compare where the Flyers are in terms of their process to the rest of the teams in the division and see like what we're up against here, because it's a pretty tough road for the Flyers, but where can they find some advantages? We'll talk about it. LJ Mooney is one of the more intriguing prospects to me that you have suggested we talk about, Russ, because he is a very dynamic forward who's currently with the National Team Development Program. He's from Western PA. His cousin is Logan Cooley, so he does have some NHL connection there. The thing about him, though, he is 5'7". And like I am 5'7". So I think about like a guy my exact size making it in the NHL, and it's a little scary, I gotta say, but there's a lot of upside to this kid, right?
There is. And I think someone might take him in the 2nd because it's just one of those things where it's like, you know what? You never know. And maybe they go with the you never know factor. He's a dynamic skater. He does have a scoring touch. He definitely is more of a playmaker. He can get crunched too, though. Like, remember everybody was worried about, hey, Emil Andre, the Flyers were like, hey, you got to learn how to protect yourself. Well, Mooney really does because he's 5'7". Like and he's slight of frame, and he got hurt in the U18s just that way. But there's a lot there. Like, we've all been watching him for years in the program.
Yeah, and I think you talked about his dynamic game, and this kid has zero fear whatsoever. He will go after anybody. It does not matter what size they are.
No.
He is going to throw a hit up against anybody. Sometimes it looks ridiculous because of the size differential, but he'll do it anyway. And I think some of that will have to be worked out of him just because the size factor at the NHL level and the muscle and how guys are built when they're older, it's a different ball game. But at the same point, I think it does give him the confidence to use his speed to the best of his ability, right?
Yeah, even at that size, he's 28% defensive zone starts according to Instat. That's a lot.
Mhm.
That's like a 24%. That's a lot. And neutral zone's 28%. Considering his size, it shows he does have a feistiness. And so, as an example, if the Flyers used, I don't know, I think they have 2 seconds, maybe even 3. They
4.
used 4. So let's say they used the third one on him, right? He's still on the board. Let's go LJ Mooney. When you bring a guy like that into camp and he starts competing like that against your other bigger guys, he's good for your camp.
That is a really good point. I think he is definitely the kind of kid who's going to drive everybody around him to play better. And you see that when he plays with
people are going to
the
be like,
development
look at the
program.
small guy, like, overachieving here. What are you going to do about it? Whoever it is as a coach you're talking to, what are you going to do about that? Look at this guy. He's outplaying you. That's what he has to do. He knows that.
And on a strong program like the National Team Development Program, for him at that size to play 2C on that U18 team, like, that's impressive. That is very impressive.
61% shots on goal, 51% wins on faceoffs. I mean, he's not, he's not a center, but when he has to take a faceoff once in a while, he wins them. Like 46% on puck battles, considering his size. Now, we know some of this is not going to continue, but we also know that we have seen guys like Nate Gerby, et cetera, that have survived at that size, and it's very rare. But there's a chance he could survive at that size with the way his skating is. Now, there are going to be times where he gets banged up. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I think, the one constant criticism that I saw of his game is that he really needs to work on possession skills a little bit. That sometimes he panic throws the puck out in front of the net and then it just gets intercepted and the other team skates away with it. That he just needs to kind of build that confidence to hold on to the puck for a millisecond longer to make a more deliberate move. And I think that's something that can improve with good coaching. I don't think that's a big enough issue right now, especially given that he's a University of Minnesota commit. And I think going to NCAA hockey is going to be so good for him on both fronts in terms of dealing with more size around him, people that know how to use their size at a higher level, and those puck possession skills.
Yeah.
Because that'll get coached.
Yes, that will. Oh, Minnesota for sure. I mean, that will definitely get coached there. Again, he was 11 points in 7 games at the U18s. If you watched him before he got hurt, he was dynamite. Like, he just was dynamite. This is one of those things where if I'm a team with 1 second-round pick, no, I'm not picking him. But the Flyers have 4. And this is one of those times where you say if they have all 4 or 3 out of the 4, yeah, you roll the dice on this one because there's something there. It may never work out. He may just be your best phantom for 5 years or more. And he probably will be the best AHL player when he plays in the AHL because he's that kind of guy. But if he can make the transition, he might be able to help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good risk to take with a second-round pick, to your point, with that many of them.
With that many.
Yeah, right now, the highest he's ranked is 35, which I think is too high.
It's too high.
The median is 65, which I think might be too low. I feel like maybe it should be in the mid-50s, mid-high 50s overall, just based on the level of the skill that he has.
But this is one you can play poker with. Like, this is one with the Flyers. We're making our first second-round pick. Okay, he's on the board. We're not taking him. We're taking our second one. He's still there. We're not doing it yet. He's still there for our third one. Do we want to risk it for the fourth one? Do we want to take him now? Like, they can do that. Most teams can't do that.
Right. And that's where I think, if everybody else around him that the Flyers pick are guys 6 feet or bigger.
Mhm.
And this is the one smaller guy you pick in the draft.
Yeah, so
Like,
be it.
that's fine. That's fine. I think, people get overly concerned sometimes about having too many small guys. And I get that because you want to be able to compete. And I think the physicality of the NHL has reached a point where it's tough to have like a smaller lineup across the board. But you got to have like some variety and some
You do,
skill
and I
here.
could hear it. Like, I could hear after he's picked, "Oh, how is it's not like a Broad Street
Right.
bully. How's that?" And guess what? He'll be one of the fastest guys on your team to start,
Right.
and then you see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think with the NCAA path, that's a really, really smart move on his
Yeah, and you don't have
part.
to sign him right away. There's none of that.
Nope. Give him time to cook there. He could
Yeah.
play 2, 3 years in
Yep.
college hockey, and
Easy.
you see what you got, and then go from there, and, like, who knows? Maybe you have another, like, Alex Bump situation where a guy blossoms
Yeah.
in college, and, I mean, I know Alex Bump is a different kind of player and
Yeah.
much bigger, but, like, in terms of the development path, I think there could be a similarity there with a guy like him.
Yeah, it's not like nobody 5'7's ever played in the league. They have. It's just there's very few.
The interesting thing about the Flyers draft pick selection is right now they have all those seconds. They have 1 third-round pick, and so,
They can't
like,
risk
if
it like
they
him going
can't.
to the third at that
Yeah,
point. I agree with
yeah,
that. I think that may be
yeah.
where the dividing line is. I don't know where their third round pick is, but if they wait and they take all their seconds, it could be one of the situations where he goes 2, 3 picks before that third.
Yeah, I think it's in the regular slot so they'd be the 4th pick in the 3rd
Right.
round
Yeah, and it
because
could
they were
go
4th in the.
if he's still there in the third round, he could
Yeah.
go like, within those first 3 picks in the third round. He could.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe, like the 3rd second rounder
Yeah.
that they have, or the 3rd or 4th second rounder if he's still
Yeah,
around.
like I said, you play poker with that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another guy that's a little bit further down in the draft that the Flyers could take a risk on is Nicolas Sykora, and we are going to talk about him coming up next. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center so you can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And when I first started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery to my apartment. Now I budget smarter and save more. And instead of juggling multiple financial apps, I can use Monarch to check finances, track spending, and plan those long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, Russ. Nicolas Sykora. That name, Sykora, should sound familiar to a lot of players. Dad is Peter Sykora,
Mhm.
mostly known as a New Jersey Devils player, although he did play for other teams during his career. So we have that NHL pedigree there. And that means that Nicholas grew up in North Jersey and played
Mhm.
his youth hockey in North Jersey, which is one of the strongest youth hockey markets in the country, I would say. Obviously you have Massachusetts and the upper Midwest, but outside of that, like North Jersey has some really good programs.
Yeah, no
So,
question. The Avalanche and there's other teams, yeah.
mhm. So he's on the younger side. He's turning 18 later this month. So he does have a little bit more of a runway there. He's a 6 foot tall at the moment, but he could obviously still get taller
Yep.
since he is only 17. He's a forward, and he has spent time in the USHL, originally with the Omaha Lancers, more recently with Sioux City in that league. He changed teams. Sioux City was eliminated in round 2 of the USHL playoffs this year, but in 5 playoff games, Sykora got 2 points, a goal, and an assist. But harder to judge that because of the shorter playoff experience there, but 33 points in 44 games this season with Sioux City.
Yeah, the big thing is I have an article on him that hasn't posted yet, but I'll give you some of the highlights. He did get a trade engineered, and so he got traded there. It picked up for him, and I had seen him in other international play and other things over the years, and so sort of been tracking him. He is a left wing. Can he play center? Yes. Will he? Probably not, but he can. So just the versatility is good. He's a good skater. He's a guy who can make plays and draw penalties. And that's the good thing about him. Like, he's smart enough to draw penalties. He knows how to hold on to the puck and do that. And yeah, he's got a really good hockey IQ. I think his dad's done a good job with him. And the interesting thing, and you know, on the left wing, he really does play that really well. Here's the big thing. Him and his dad bonded over yelling at bad drivers in New Jersey. Like, they do that when they're in the car together, and I applaud that. I do. I think it's fantastic.
That is very funny.
So he's got a good sense of humor, but he understands who he is. He took a chance, and I think it paid off for him. And now he's had a nice 3/4 of a season in his draft year. And I think that's really good. But he's also that guy, and he's told me this, like, if his center's having a bad game on faceoffs, he's a guy who could jump in there and take faceoffs. And teams have done that with him. So he's a good guy to have.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I wasn't sure if he's a guy that could be a center at the NHL level. I think, again, just because he's a little further down, right? So he's ranked 109th in central scouting for North American skaters. There was only one other ranking I saw that had him at 102 overall. And that kind of puts him in the 4th round, which is ironically, the Flyers do not have a 4th round pick. Amongst all the picks they have, they don't have a 4th rounder this year. Now, when we get to that point, the Flyers always
they could make a trade into the 4th. They could trade something from next year if they want them. There's a million things they could do. They could trade out of the 2nd round in this draft, get another 4th just because they think, and get something for next year. Like, there's options.
Yeah, I'm certainly, by the way, hoping that they do that with one of those 2nd rounders, is get another pick in next year's draft. But
and that's what I would do.
Yeah. That being said,
I already revealed my hand, folks. There you go.
It's kind of an obvious move, but at the same time, an important move, I think. But going back to Nic Sykora, I think, sometimes we get a little cranky about the Nepo baby situation in the NHL. It's very high. The Nepo baby situation is a little out of control, but there's a reason why these kids are successful. It's because they have been around it, and they have the access, and they have the resources to be able to get the best training and the best coaching, and the equipment, and the getting them to the right programs, and that helps them become better hockey players here.
It does.
And that's what gives him potential in some ways.
I mean, his dad was driving him around talking hockey. Like, that helps. He is going to interview great. He's a smart kid, and he works hard at both ends of the ice. And that's what's going to get him drafted. I think, someone
Does he get a combine invite or no?
Yeah, I think so, because of the last name, for sure.
Yeah, that's a question I had, just because he's borderline 100, so
I think they might do it for him, like, especially if they know a couple are dropping out. I could see his name getting added.
Yeah, because that can make a difference for him too if he pops at the combine.
Yes. Yep. But he's one of those guys that, again, he's been around, so the Flyers scouts know him. Certainly everybody knows his dad. His dad was a very good player. He could be a little less than that, I think, and definitely an NHLer at some point. I don't know if he's just a depth guy, but I think there's a good chance. And so, like, he could be like one of those guys. Yeah, you take in the 4th round, 3rd round, 5th round, and you hope. But, there's a lot there. Like you said, there's a lot of ground being laid. And I forget, I got to look at what college he's going to. Oh, I think he said Quinnipiac.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's a great college. I mean, Rand Pecknold is one of the best coaches out there. So like, if you're the Flyers, you're not even worried. You call Rand Pecknall, like that's a guy who could coach your team now if he wanted to.
And such a good teacher. That's the
Yes.
thing, is like these kids that go to Quinnipiac, even though Quinnipiac isn't as flashy as Boston College or Minnesota or whatever, the kids progress there astronomically.
Yeah.
Like their games just go off the charts in terms of the levels of improvement you get from entering that school to leaving that school. And I think that's going to make a big difference for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's alumni in the NHL right now from Quinnipiac. Skylar Brindamore just played a game. Chase Prisky is in the AHL right now. Jacob Quillen's been playing. He played at least 1 or 2 games for the Leafs. Like, there's guys around.
Right.
Devin Taves is the biggest one. Sorry.
And, you know, for a 4th rounder, that's the goal, right? Is to like get a crack at it. And so I think for a depth pick, this is a really good option, and we will add him to our spreadsheet of draft eligible prospects we've covered on the show so far. I believe this puts us at 27 or 28. I'd have to double check, but we're starting to rack up the numbers here. You can watch any of the segments we've done on any of these prospects so far, and we will add more names to the list next week. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, on tomorrow's show, we're going to take a look around the Metro Division to see what our competition is up to. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.